Welcome back to another Reading and Correcting. With me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. And if you are looking to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today, we are doing chapter 51 of The Technician's Fight. The projection over his desk showed an enhanced view of the Bane. That would be capitalized as the name of the ship. A recording from a ship about emotion. Gralgiran had been standing when Admiral Duan Sel Sinta Kreftia had appeared for the meeting she'd requested. She'd asked that he sit, as she wanted this to be informal instead of official. "I am not here as a representative of the leadership, Alpha," she said, "but as someone who swore to keep Kelsier safe, addressing an equal with that same oath." He had no way to know how true that was, but their previous discussions led him to think she was honest. Tom had also not uncovered anything nefarious about the admirals in his sniffing around the back rooms. So he had, and she'd set the recording for him to watch. "Unidentified ship," a female said in Earther. "This is the San Francisco Mercantile Station. You have entered human space. Identify yourself." The flash of light from the Bane was so intense it disrupted the image. "Unidentified ship," the same female said, now sounding afraid. "This is the San Francisco Mercantile Station. I repeat, we are a mercantile station. We are civilians and unarmed. Please do not fire." Another flash of light, and when the image returned, it shook. "We surrender!" she yelled. "Please have mercy! We surrender!" The ship recording moved. The ship recording moved. The ship making the recording moved. There was another flash of light from the Bane. The image shifted with the ship. This ship away from the station, its recording moving from the Bane as it fired far more guns than his ship had to the station. Moving from the Bane, yeah, as it fired far more guns than his ship had to the station, showing ships scattering and being destroyed in the attack. Plasma impacted the station multiple times before it exploded. When that dimmed, the image was the black of non-recording. Then an Earther male stood centered in the projection. He was older, by the gray in his hair and the wrinkles on his brown skin. He dressed in what Gralgiran had learned to recognize as an attire of power from all those Earther movies he'd watched. Clean lines in the cloth, black with a sheen that meant quality. At the bottom, the text read, "Earth President Meseret Adamu Abibi." "What you watched," he said in accented Earther, was the unprovoked attack and destruction of a station we'd established at the edge of our space to help with in the trade with the people of the Federation. He was silent, his expression somber. "We don't know why, but we know who." On his left, the image of the Bane docked at the Einstein station appeared. Nearly 3 years ago, the ship docked at Einstein station under false pretense for the sole purpose of kidnapping one of our experts in antimatter research and advancement. Any attempt to negotiate his return have been snubbed, and this is what they do next. This is what our supposed allies, the Kelsirians, do. For decades, they claimed to want to help us join the Federation. They sent ambassadors claiming they would assist in the process, when in fact they were spying on us, studying our ways so they could make us sick. The effort to stop was visible, and he shook. We, the people of human space, won't judge another species for how they live, but we will draw the line at being forced to act in ways that are antithetical to who we are. They claim to want to help us advance, to join them in sharing technology, but when we are close to catching up to them with our antimatter research, What do? Kidnapped one of our experts. When we attempt to make trade easier, they destroy the station so many of you have poured sweat and love into seeing built. People screamed, and Gralgiran realized this was taking place outside. Well, enough is enough. If those Kelsirians don't want us, unless we become debased like them, then we don't want them. From this moment, any Kelsirians crossing into our space will be arrested on charges of espionage and trialed as such. Why do you not like this? I don't know. Should we ever decide to join this federation that welcomes people like them, we will do so with allies who understand the human people, who accept how we are, who won't make demands we make ourselves into animals like them. The projection went black, then was replaced with the admiral. The Earthers officially closed their borders to us as this was broadcast. Did we have any ambassadors left among them? No. They were recalled when the decision to withdraw our support for their entry into the Federation was reached. He nodded. Please, that wasn't something they had to worry about. This is also not an accusation against you, Alpha. Here is an eyebrow. Was there ever a question of if I'd committed the acts they claimed? The time it took her to respond was telling. No. But there was a discussion about using that to force you to return to Kelser to answer the implied charges. Is that still being considered? She rubbed her face. Alpha, you do not make it easy to deal with you. Because of that, you have made many enemies among the leadership. If you aren't careful, they will eventually outweigh those who understand the good the hunters do for Kelser. I can't control how the leadership views my action, Admiral. I do what I'm tasked with to the best of my ability. I know. She sounded tired, but she sighed. We already had that discussion. You'll do what the gods demand of you, and we have to deal with the consequences. He didn't like the way she thought about it. He was aware of the consequences, although the Earthers had demonstrated he hadn't considered the length they'd go to in their reprisal. Admiral, my Alpha is on Kelser. We have betas whose sole purpose is to interface with the leadership. You have people to go to when there are questions of what the orders you want to give us mean in relation to our service to the gods. And do you think that any more they are, do you think that are they do you think they are any more flexible than you, Alpha? You aren't the only problem for us among the hunters. If you were, we wouldn't care. One maverick can be ignored. But I made myself the visible one through my successes. And the Federation media reporting on it. She nodded. You have become a character of ballads. I'm amazed there aren't any official ones being broadcasted at this point. It's not allowed. Our lives belong to the god, not to those who would make them whatever they want. There's still plenty of unofficial ones. Because of them, we get the hunters reject instead of being the first choice of those seeking to protect Kelser. Those we don't accept will still make remarkable soldiers. That isn't the point. She took breaths. We are supposed to be the front line. You are supposed to be those dealing with the oddities. But for the last few centuries, there's been a shift, and you're seen as more important than the military. Not by us. Gralgiran knew that, just like he had a good understanding of why the shift had happened. The leadership, along with the politicians, were slow to change, while the hunters existed to adapt to what the battle line demanded. When space opened, the hunters went to it without hesitation, while the leadership evaluated the pros and cons. For nearly a century, they refused to accept the line had moved. By the time they finally made it, the hunters had contracts with the Federation for most of the line, and their performance had never brought those contracts to be moved. Those contracts into doubts. And their performance had never brought those contracts into doubt. Leading to request they be moved to a different group. Not by you, replied pointedly, but some hunters think themselves above us. We all serve the gods in the end. She almost rolled her eyes. You have you brought those alphas to our alphas' attention? You really expect me to believe she'll bring them in line? You keep telling us you only answer to the gods and she's the first among you. Admiral, I can't tell you what she'll do. I'm asking, have you tried? Or is the leadership letting this animosity toward us widen the gap instead of trying to narrow it? We answer to the gods because that is how we best serve Kelsir. Thinking we are better than the others who serve our people isn't what the gods want from us. You would be so much easier to deal with if you weren't so fucking understanding, she grumbled. He chuckled. One of the god I am named for is the one of justice. He requires that I bring understanding to handling any situation. His ears folded back. I will admit it's easier to do when I'm not the one dealing with the problem hunters. She chuckled. So they give you troubles too. That's good to know. We are people. Regardless of our namesakes, we will make mistakes and our superiors will have to deal with them. She nodded. Some will use this against you, she said. But they can't make you responsible for this debacle the Earthers are becoming. I want you to know that much. Admiral, I need to know, are you my ally? As Tom kept telling him, he needed to make some among the leadership. I respect you, Alpha. I respect the work the hunters do, but I can't be active in your defense. I'm sorry. He nodded. He was too visible. Another within the leadership had told him when Gagaran had thought they might be. Another had said he could be if Gagaran was willing to do something in return. Politics. It was always politics. I understand. Thank you for informing me. He ended the transmission. Gagaran paced before the door, drawing smiles from the hunters at their station. Him agitated wasn't a common sight, although it had become more so since finding his heart. The door opened, and he was before it as the two hunters exited, supporting an injured Jer between them. He gingerly took him from them. I've got you. Jer clung to him as hard as his weakened state let him. Cuts, bruises, broken bones, and internal injuries sap much of a person's strength, even with a resilient, even someone as resilient as an Earther. Medical's ready for you, he said, to keep his heart from losing consciousness. None of the injuries were life-threatening, but a coma was possible. Even if those were treatable, it was always better to avoid them. I'm proud of you. Learning to resist physical torture was no easier than dealing with the emotional ones, and unlike those where it was possible to think his way around and out of it, pain was pain. No amount of wishing it was something else made it so. Resistance to it came from being exposed to it, learning to think while under its effect. There were methods to cause pain that didn't create injuries, but it had been discovered that there was an aspect it didn't prepare the recipient for when they were caught and tortured. Seeing an injury, your arm bent in the wrong direction, was a terror different from the pain itself. So they'd gone back to the old methods and using modern tools. He entered medical, and a medic guided him to the bed that had been readied. They didn't often deal with so extensive injuries. Work and combat injuries were rarely this sick. Okay. I deal with these types of injuries. of injuries. They didn't often deal with these types of injuries. Work and combat injuries were rarely this extensive due to the precision needed to cause this much damage and not kill the person. But Jer wasn't the first on the ship to join the hunters, so medical had needed the training. We'll have him back to you tomorrow, Captain. The medic said, her expression and angle of the ears telling him to leave. He managed it, but couldn't consider going to their apartment. So he contacted Drez for company and distraction. And that concludes chapter 51 of The Technician's Fight. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter will be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read this story, it is available on Ream Story. And if you are looking to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. Links are in the notes, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.